What? No, I don't want to do this one. This one's not fun. I mean, Raumbauer Chardonnay is the spam of wine. Hey everyone, Sam Rethmeyer here, and today I'm going to ruin Chardonnay for you. But not like I think you think I'm going to ruin Chardonnay for you. Chardonnay is quite possibly the most polarizing grape variety on the face of the planet. You either love it or hate it. Part of that love-hate relationship has to do with New French oak and how Chardonnay has become synonymous with being a very oaky wine. To understand why Chardonnay got to that point, you have to go back in time to 1976. An event was held called the Judgment of Paris, pitting the Chardonnays and Cabernet Sauvignons of Napa Valley against the whites from Burgundy and the reds from Bordeaux. In what can only be described as a major upset, the wines of Napa beat out the wines of France in a blind tasting. Even the French thought that the wines from Napa Valley were better in that blind tasting. It was a huge scandal. And overnight, the popularity of Napa Valley wines exploded worldwide. And of course, you then had a proliferation of wineries opening up in the Napa Valley because there was money to be made there. The problem with that, though, is that you can't just plant vines anywhere. They need poor soil. Viticulture is the antithesis of agriculture. Agriculture, you plant in nutrient-rich soils. You only plant vines in areas where things like cereals don't do well. So you plant them up on hills. You plant it where it's really difficult to farm. At least that's what you do in France. In the Napa Valley, they just started planting vineyards everywhere. And to come back full circle on Chardonnay, one of the major pieces of why Chardonnay can be so ethereal and mind-blowingly good is that it's known as the winemaker's grape, in that it inherently has very little flavor. So if you plant Chardonnay on nutrient-rich soils, it overproduces grapes and the wine ends up tasting very bland. If you just happen to plant it in the wrong spot, the wine itself ends up being very bland. So how do you add flavor and distinction to your wine? Well, enter New French oak. So New French oak became a boon for these winemakers that had a bunch of bland Chardonnay laying around. So rather than fixing the problem by planting vineyards in more appropriate spots for Chardonnay, they doubled down on New French oak. And the problem with this is that Chardonnay coming out of California became a style. So to go back to the food analogy, if I ask you to grill 4 steaks, you don't put those 4 steaks on the grill for the exact amount of time. They're all slightly different. That's winemaking. Baking, on the other hand, if I said, hey, can you bake me some blueberry muffins? You find a recipe, you follow that recipe every time, you create the same thing every single time. Winemaking should be like grilling steak, not like baking. And that's why I say that Raumbauer Chardonnay is the spam of wine. It's manufactured to taste the same way every single time. And now for the moment I've been dreading this entire time. I'm gonna taste some Raumbauer Chardonnay. Right, so on the nose, immediately, it is vanilla. There is no mistaking that, and it is so pervasive. It's really the only thing that you smell unless you really dig deep. Underneath that, maybe a little lemon pith. But those 2 notes, that's essentially all I'm getting. And now that vanilla note will translate onto the palate. And this wine, at 14.5% alcohol, is going to feel weighty. It's going to feel full-bodied. And that full-bodied, high alcohol on top of that vanilla is like eating butter that was deep fried in butter, seasoned with more butter. All right, damn it. Here goes nothing. In a word, yuck. You definitely get the vanilla notes. This is high in alcohol. You taste it. You feel that burn on the way down. It has residual sugar. For all of you that think, nah, I only like dry wine. If you like Raumbauer Chardonnay, you like sugar. Sugar and alcohol both dehydrate you, which can be what leads to a wicked hangover tomorrow morning. God, I hope I don't get hungover tomorrow morning. And as far as fruit goes, or complexity in the wine, there's not much to it after that. Some tropical fruit notes, acidity does come through, but given how high the alcohol is, they acidified this wine. They add citric acid to it. There's no way that you can get a Chardonnay at 14.5% alcohol and still have that acidity. And look, that's really unfortunate because Chardonnay should be profound. It should be multi-layered, super complex, super enjoyable to drink. And for those of you that are thinking, ugh, I don't even drink Chardonnay because of how oaky it is, you gotta try Chablis. Chablis is a winemaking region in France producing Chardonnay like nowhere else in the world. The vines that are planted in Chablis are in a soil called Kimmeridgian. Kimmeridgian is limestone with fossilized seashells in it. It produces a wine that is smoky, it's more saline, mineral. You do get fruit, but it's more citrus rather than orchard fruit or pineapple. These are lean wines, and if you like Sauvignon Blanc or dry Riesling, this is a great call. And where that Raumbauer can cost anywhere from $45 to $60 a bottle, depending upon where you go, you can find Chablis like this for $25, $30. And for those of you that think I'm an asshole for ruining Raumbauer for you, check out Heights Cellars. Fantastic winery, a little bit of French oak, so you get a little bit of that richness, but radically complex. This is Chardonnay in one of its best examples from the Napa Valley, and it's significantly less expensive than Raumbauer. Oh, and for those of you that watched the Ruining It video about vegan wines, this is hand harvested. Raumbauer, machine harvested. So, you know, there are no dead birds or mice or bugs in this wine. All right, everyone. Thanks for letting me ruin Chardonnay for you. Here's to better drinking. Cheers.